Well, welcome guests. Thank you for being here this morning. We're going to start off with Bob Hazlett. Bob Hazlett is a senior engineering manager at the Maricopa Association of Governments, where he has worked for the past 11 years managing the regional freeway and the highway program for MAG. And Bob also graduated from the University of Missouri, Rolla, and is a registered engineer in Arizona. Welcome, Bob. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this morning. Wanted to talk with you about the Regional Freeway and Highway Program, and I know a lot of folks kind of say, well, what does MAG have to do with the Regional Freeway and Highway Program? I thought that was all ADOT. Well, the best way to kind of put it is that the half-cent sales tax that's collected on all goods here in Maricopa County that go to fund transportation all have to be kind of routed through the Maricopa Association of Governments. And how many of you are familiar with who MAG is? Oh, good. There's a number of folks that know who we are. MAG is the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Transportation Management Agency for the Phoenix metropolitan area. And when it comes to transportation decisions, our regional council, which is represented by all of the elected mayors of the valley, they are the ones that actually make the decisions on what we do with transportation here in the valley. And so whenever it comes to whether or not we widen a road or whether or not we extend a road or whether or not we even build the road in the first place, that all kind of happens with the MAG Regional Council. And then ADOT, which is our construction partner and has been for the last 30 plus years in terms of building the freeway system, they are the ones that actually go ahead and deliver the program and do it according to whatever the MAG Regional Council identifies. And so the presentation that I have for you today is to give you an update on the program, where things are, to kind of help you figure out what construction is going to be happening down here, particularly in the Chandler area. I took this picture from a Southwest Airlines jet coming in, and I think it's a great picture. You can kind of see all the southern areas here of Chandler and all the great things that have happened. In my 11 years that I've been here, the Santan Freeway has been opened. The Price Freeway was already open, and it's kind of great to see that all the businesses, you see the Intel Park and everything that's happening down to the south, Chandler Fashion Square, you see all these different things that have started to happen here in this part of the valley. But I want to go ahead and talk to you about the project. I'm going to start right off the bat here with the biggest one that's about ready to, well, it's already started construction. In fact, I live out in Goodyear, so I drove in from Goodyear this morning, and the construction's already started right now on the South Mountain Freeway up here at Interstate 10. In fact, they've already got the shoulder shut down. They're already starting to do what we call clean and grub, where they go and get the land all prepared for that particular interchange. The record of decision was delivered on this a couple of years back. ADOT has engaged what we call a P3 contractor that's going to do a design, build, maintain project for us. And that's going to be building all 22 miles of the South Mountain Freeway. And if everything goes according to plan, this should be open to traffic by about this time in 2019, so about 3 years from now. And that's going to be a great connection between the southwest and the southeast valleys, giving us the needed connection that we've been looking for. This has been, as probably many of you know, has been on the drawing boards for a number of years. And it has been the subject of some legal challenges, but those legal challenges have been withstood right now, although there are more that we will probably see here. And so we've been very happy with all the work that ADOT's been doing on this, our partners at the Federal Highway Administration, and of course from all the elected leadership here in the Valley to move this particular corridor forward. Another project that we have going on is that we've been looking at Interstate 10 and Interstate 17. You see it highlighted here in blue. This corridor is 35 miles, and we call this the spine because if you notice how all the freeways work, they all kind of flow into that, and so it becomes like the central nervous system of the entire valley. And so when we have Loop 202 opening up here in a couple of years, we know that there is some serious congestion along this corridor. In fact, I got to sit in it this morning. So we know that there's a lot of stuff, particularly around the Broadway curve. There were plans at one time to widen it as much as 25 lanes, and that's a lot of lanes. But we've been kind of scaling some of that back because we're starting to see now that the way the valley's starting to develop, Yes, there's still a lot of folks that want to go to downtown Phoenix, but we're also seeing that there's a lot of folks wanting to head to Sky Harbor. And what's really been the problem is not just adding lanes to the issue, it's trying to get the traffic in the right lanes. And so trying to get rid of the weaving issues that we particularly have from US 60 that feeds into 143. And so what we've been developing is a master plan that will help us figure out what to do with this entire corridor. This project's been underway for a number of years, but the primary reason I want to bring it to everybody's attention is that starting in January 16th, we're going to have some recommendations that are going to be out on what we want to do on this particular corridor. And we'd really like for your comments to be a part of that. And so if you go to spine.azmag.gov, you'll be able to find out more about that. And we do have some recommendations here that do influence some of the transportation operations here in Chandler, particularly on your western border. And so just wanted to point out those comments. It's going to be some online polling that we're going to be doing. We also have some public meetings. One's going to be on January 24th at the MAG offices in downtown. The one that will be happening in this area, we don't have a date yet, but it will be at the town of Guadalupe's town hall to be able to reach out to the folks here in the Southeast Valley. Suffice it to say, we're pretty excited about the recommendations from this, and it's going to represent probably about a $2.5 billion investment for the entire valley in terms of how we address this. And it's not just adding lanes to the project. One of the biggest issues that we have, and I know this is outside of Chandler's area, but this section of Interstate 17 between the split right here where Sky Harbor is, reaching through the stack up to what we call, well, Dunlap, that stretch of freeway was at one time Arizona State Route 69. It was opened back in 1957. And the pavement that's underneath, yeah, we got some really nice quiet pave that's going on, and we love the fact that ADOT has taken that and running with that. But the point is that the pavement underneath it is getting very old. It's getting to the end of its service life, and so we have to scrape it all out and do something with it. So construction days are definitely ahead for Interstate 17 and Interstate 10. Now, the other thing that we've been doing is we've been looking at all of the projects, and this is where I'm going to start talking about all the things that are happening, particularly in the Chandler area. We've been looking at all the remaining stuff that we have here in the program that we have that was passed by the voters back in 2004, otherwise known as Proposition 400. Right now, you can see up here in orange, we got about $1.7 billion under construction. The biggest part of that being the South Mountain Freeway, but we also have some stuff happening up here on Grand Avenue up in Surprise and in El Mirage, and then we also have some interchange work that's being done over in Goodyear. What you see here in green is projects that we all have still yet to be programmed and still yet to be to occur. You can kind of see the spine being a big part of that, but you also see too Loop 101, the Price Freeway highlighted. It's been identified for an additional lane in each direction. And then you also see here Loop 202 out in Gilbert, where we're extending the HOV lane system. Right now it ends at Gilbert Road. We want to see it extended further east. And then you see up here Loop 101 on the Pima Freeway up north, some more construction there to add some lanes, particularly this top end of 101 that goes from Glendale over to Scottsdale is a pretty busy area. And then we have interchange projects that are sprinkled throughout there. That's about $2.3 billion. At the time when we were balancing our program and trying to make certain that the revenues matched up with what we were able to do, we felt that all we had was enough money to do was what you see there in orange and in green. But over the past few years, we've been working very closely with ADOT and with Federal Highway Administration. Then we now have about $1 billion surplus in our program, which in government is huge. And so what we just went through an exercise is we went back and we worked with all of our elected leadership and our Transportation Policy Committee to identify a smattering of other projects that we can add back to our program and be able to bring even more capacity improvements to the valley. The biggest one for this area is the widening of the Santan Freeway with an additional general purpose lane between the Pecos stack here at I10 and Loop 202 all the way over to Gilbert Road. And we see that that's going to be a very important project that's going to be happening for this particular part of the valley. It's amazing because the Santan Freeway, and particularly in that area, it's only been open for about 10 years, and it's so well used and so well received that we need to add more capacity to it. And so that's a big project that's being added back in. You see over here too, I'll talk a little bit later about State Route 24 and some of the stuff that's been talked about over here in the Gateway Airport area. But you can also see over here in the other parts of the valley, widening Loop 101 out here in the West Valley, widening Interstate 10, some widening up here with Loop 303. And then also too, you see right here this blue line, this is what we call the State Route 30 corridor, which is an alternative Interstate 10 here in the West Valley. Because when you look at the West Valley and how it's growing out here, we only have one freeway to get back and forth to that part of the valley. And so there are plans afoot right now to consider another corridor right here that's parallel to Interstate 10. Ultimately, one day it'll probably go here to the Durango Curve, and it'll also extend all the way over to State Route 85 in Buckeye. So we're always kind of looking ahead. The thing that we're kind of concerned about is that when you add all these numbers together, that's $5 billion worth of construction that we look to see happening over the next 9 to 10 years. And that's going to be a lot of work that's going to be here in the valley. And so we've been working with our friends at ADOT, and the biggest part of this, and one big takeaway I want you to take away from this particular slide, is the ability to sequence these projects properly. One of the issues that we're concerned about is adding another lane on Loop 101 is fine, and it might help out in these particular reaches, but there's really nothing on the Santan Freeway for it to be received to. And so we want to make certain that there are lanes and that the sequencing is done at an appropriate time to make certain that if you're building Loop 101 and you're adding a lane to it, that traffic that's in that lane has a lane to be able to go to on Loop 202. And so we're working right now with ADOT on a lot of these different things. Sequencing is one of the biggest part of this. In fact, we have a large sequencing workshop scheduled at MAG next week for us to be able to figure out how to take all of these projects, the $5 billion, which is pretty amazing. I think up until now, ADOT's been delivering roughly about $300 to about $400 million in construction a year. $5 billion over 9, you kind of do the math. We're wrapping that up a little bit, and we're wanting to make certain that the industry is ready for that, both from the design side as well as from the construction side. And we also don't want to spike anything with material costs as a result of doing this as well. So that's why we're being very careful about how the sequencing is done with the entire project. Now, I'll talk about a couple other projects, and then I know Reza wants to talk about the operations and how we're doing that. I'll talk a little bit here about State Route 24, a new freeway that's been identified. I know it's not in the Chandler area, but it is in the Southeast Valley, and it is a very important freeway. It helps out a lot of folks down in Apache Junction as well as Santan Valley. But what we're looking at with this particular freeway right now, only the first mile is open between Ellsworth and Loop 202. Ultimately, here it's supposed to go all the way over to Ironwood Drive in Pinal County. And so what we're working with ADOT on right now is trying to get what we call a phase 1 or an interim type facility. We don't have all the money to build it out as a full freeway just yet, but work with ADOT right now to make certain that we can get this interim type facility constructed as soon as possible to be able to help out the folks that live out here, but also too there's a lot of development that's been identified out here in Mesa. The other thing that some of you may have heard about is at Lindsay Road and Loop 202 in Gilbert. They have been talking about the need for a traffic interchange. Most of our traffic interchanges are about a mile apart, although this is one where we're 2 miles apart. This interchange wasn't built initially, and so we're working right now with Gilbert to work through this. There's a large development that's up here. This is an old aerial, but there is a larger development that's up here that's been under construction for some time. And I know of what's major concern to Chandler is this interchange here with Gilbert Road and Loop 202, which is under the city's jurisdiction, trying to minimize the impacts to that particular interchange. So this is a project to look out for and that we see coming. Now, I've talked about the freeways, and the freeways are kind of the area that I really look at, but we also continue to plan, too, for what we call high-capacity transit. Some of you may call it light rail, that we have identified throughout the valley. One thing to point out is, as I pointed out, that we have about $5 billion in freeway construction that's out there. We have another $2 billion that's slated to get underway in light rail construction throughout the valley as well. Some of the biggest lines that have been talked about is this, it's called South Central Corridor. That's already moving towards design here in Phoenix to be able to help feed the light rail from South Central. One of the other projects is trying to get a rail line, even though it says 2023 here on all of I-10, but trying to get something out to the Capitol so that if you grab the light rail out here, you'll have a way to get to the Capitol by train. And then in Tempe, there's been a lot of discussion about putting in a streetcar system that would allow them to have another circulator to be able to allow folks to be able to get around the ASU campus, as well as a lot of the commercial developments that have been happening along Tempe Town Lake. And now I guess we may have a hockey arena that might be coming into that area as well. So, so again, planning for that. You can see the other corridors that have been identified. This one, it's a big giant blob you see right there. It says 2026 for going out to downtown Glendale. That's starting to become more defined now as we start to look at that. And then this last line you see out here out to Paradise Valley, it's also starting to see some other design underway too. So needless to say, that's happening. This is the light rail. There's also a companion commuter rail look that would be that MAG is freshening up that study right now to see if we can move that into operation. And I know a lot of the commuter rail centers on the Kyrene branch that does go through Chandler, about that being a corridor for commuter rail. We don't have any dates or any times for that yet. There's still a lot more study that has to be done, as well as working with the railroads, as well as working with indemnification with the railroads, and some of the other things that has to kind of work through state government that would allow us to start operating a commuter rail system. As it stands right now, commuter rail is not funded, but as folks always kind of look towards the future, even though Proposition 400, the half-cent sales tax sunsets in 2026, there are always folks talking about extending that tax for a period of time. We don't know yet, but that's something that's always being discussed. And so you can probably see the commuter rail system probably be a part of that future funding. The big construction that is going on light rail right now out here in the East Valley is the Gilbert Road extension. Right now, light rail kind of ends right here at Mesa Drive, extending it down Main Street in Mesa, so that it would open in 2018. So that construction is now underway in Mesa, and we've seen a lot of good things happen out of that. Now, our planning doesn't stop. We are always looking to the future, and so these are just some corridors that we kind of look at to the future as things that we see happening here in the valley in terms of other construction projects. You see here the Pinal North-South corridor out here in the in Pinal County. There's been a lot of planning underway right now by ADOT on that particular corridor, but we see that starting to take shape. And then, as I stated, 24 is slated to go to just Ironwood, but ultimately we kind of think that that's probably going to find its way over to Florence Junction at the junctions of US 60 and State Route 79. You see over here some of our initial thoughts of where we think the I-11 freeway might be. I'm certain you've heard about that in the news as being the connection to Las Vegas. And then also, too, you see other things that might happen on the spine. Grand Avenue is always a subject of great concern to the valley. And then last but certainly not least, because so many folks do take Interstate 17, is at least trying to find ways to add lanes to Interstate 17 up to at least the Yavapai County line. That's where Maricopa County, that's kind of where our jurisdiction ends, although I know that ADOT is working very hard to figure out ways to get it up the hill there at Sunset Point, just north of Black Canyon City. So again, the planning never stops. Right now, the valley is roughly at a population of about 4.1, 4.2 million people. We are planning for a population of about 6.5. So that's another 2 million of us coming here by the year 2040, and we're always trying to make certain that the best transportation services is there. Now, this doesn't take into account things like connected and autonomous vehicles. I don't know if Reza is going to probably talk about that in the future. That kind of changes up a lot of things, and we don't have a clear direction on that yet, but we're doing our best to try to, to take the information that we have so that we can figure out where things are. And so that's my presentation this morning. Be happy to take any questions, if we're doing questions now or after Reza.
That's up to you, too. Would you like to take them now or after?
Why don't we let Reza go ahead and do his presentation?
Thank you, Bob. That was very informative. Appreciate you being here today. I'd now like to introduce Reza Karimavan. He has been serving with ADOT for over 20 years and currently holds the position of State Systems Technology Manager. Prior to joining ADOT in the private sector and transportation engineering field for more than 10 years, Reza graduated from Louisiana Tech University and is a registered professional engineer in the state of Arizona. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much, and good morning, folks. And as soon as this is ready. Can you move? Sure. Thank you so much. Yep. Perfect. Okay, I can do it. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. And Bob went over some of the construction projects, some of the development in the valley, and how things are taking place, and how we're moving forward. I will go over what ADOT is doing, what is our, what is our direction, and what changes happen in ADOT, and how we're moving forward. And I will tell you, I will give you a little big picture scenario that the way we're moving organizationally and transportation-wise. Even though I will try to go a little more focused, in the valley, but I'm going to give you a statewide perspective that where we're going. By the way, my boss, Brad Kane, was planning to attend. Unfortunately, he had prior commitments, so I'm presenting for him. So basically, first, I will give you our direction. And Arizona governor challenged us to adapt to process improvement, daily improvement. And we go through daily improvement in our daily life with, in our organization. And we try to see whatever we can do to have better efficiency, better work product. We go through that process. And right now we're evaluating all the functions that we're doing, from bridge to roadway construction, to design section, to TISMO, which I will go over that a little later, and to determine what are the new approaches, how we can improve our efficiencies. And also, we had another issue with the FTE. We had we had to reduce from 4,500 to 4,000. Although I need to emphasize that we did not lay off any people. It was natural attrition, and but we are close to 4,000, and also restructuring the entire ADOT function. And TISMO, which is the Transportation System Management and Operation, is one of that. And and that went through the daily improvement of our process, how we can improve our process, how we can be more efficient for all the projects that Bob talked about, how we can deliver that better. And also our director was very much in support of this restructuring and TISMO division. Let me go over some of the challenges that we have. Even though with Bob's presentation, I can now easily talk about our challenges, because now you know how much construction, how we're improving in the valley. Obviously, congestion and daily increasing population in our valley is one of the challenges that we have, and then high value placed on reliability, how we can have a more reliable system. And obviously, we can no longer build our way out of the congestion. It is what it is. This is what we have. Sometimes all the construction that Bob explained, those are the construction that it's in the program and so forth. But like, if you look at I-17, there's no more real estate to expand on I-17. So we have to do whatever we can to have better efficiency, have better transportation system for our motoring public. So, and if you look at some of the fact, in 2014, Arizona crash fact, over $3 billion in economic loss due to motor vehicle crashes in 2014, which means 8.2 million a day. So that's really something that we need to look at. Let's look at some of our challenges in urban and rural area. As you can see, 45% in urban area, which basically in the valley, we have 45%, which is basically recurring congestion, and 55% non-recurring congestion. And when I talk about, let me see, okay. As you can see, non-recurring congestion includes traffic incident, bad weather, work zone, special events like Super Bowl, different games in different part of the town, and recurring congestion, basically bottleneck, signal timing, and all that, which includes 45%. And some of the bottleneck that Bob talked about, right around Broadway Curve, those are the things that we are trying to come with, construction and all the improvement that Bob referred to. Now, if we go to rural area, as you can see, it's not even comparable. I mean, 9% is non-recurring congestion and only 5% recurring congestion, which this explains that we don't really have a lot of bottleneck out of the valley. Everything's happening in. So that's why our focus has been, in the valley, and thanks to MAG and really, honestly, to Bob's personal effort of putting all the efforts, to bring these projects together. It's been a lot of effort, and working together with MAG, it's been tremendous to bring this congestion at least to some level that we can, manage our transportation. So what is the Transportation System Management and Operation, as I called TSMO? The purpose of TSMO, as it goes with the name, Transportation System Management and Operation. We're trying to maximize and optimize our performance of existing transportation infrastructure. And I will go over some of the things that we're going to be doing in statewide and particularly in the valley, like automated vehicle and autonomous vehicle and we call V2V. It means vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure system. And also, we need to preserve our capacity and improve the safety and reliability of transportation system. As I said, in some area, we have no more real estate to do any kind of construction. And by the way, the answer with the technology as it's really growing so fast, the answer is not, the construction. Sometimes it's using the technology to have better efficiency in our system. And by the way, this picture is from a different country, so we thought that would be nice to. That is 25. Right. We thought, we can tell our story better if we can put that kind of picture there. So, anyways. So, what is our vision and mission of TSMO, Transportation System Management and Operation? Because that's a new department, and new division, I should say, new division. And our vision to operate our transportation system for safe, reliable, efficient, and cost-effective means of transporting people, commerce, and data. And also our mission is integrated program to optimize the performance of existing infrastructure through implementation of systems, services, and project to preserve capacity and improve reliability and safety of our transportation system. Word by word, that's our vision and mission for newly developed TSMO division. So why TSMO is important? Where we can better align with the present and future operation with our transportation system. And then, and obviously, we can have synergies to improve, coordination for our transportation system. And maximizing efficiency of existing infrastructure, it's something that we strongly work on that in TISMO division, and also see how we can, be effective on data mobility and reliability. One of the things that I like to go over that is some of the things that we're doing here in Valley or statewide. One of them is smart RAM metering. That's one of the things that TISMO is. By the way, TISMO is mainly focused, as I said, to increase the efficiency by using technology to the best available, technology that we have to us. So one of the things that we're doing is smart RAM metering. And we went through a lot of planning with MAG, and we came up with the system that we need to have, in order to increase our efficiency, we need to have smart RAM metering. What is a smart RAM metering? Smart RAM metering is the RAM meter that you all are familiar with. They can be balanced based on mainline traffic. And then the RAM meter can talk to upstream and downstream in order to have better flow of traffic getting to the main line. So that's smart RAM metering. Right now we're doing on 51, and as we complete this project, we will evaluate to see how successful it is and what are the lessons learned from that, and with help from MAG, we try to basically incorporate that to some of the area in the valley. And by the way, we have only RAM metering in Phoenix metropolitan area. We don't have any other RAM meter any other places. So our focus is on smart RAM metering here in the valley, and we try to, as I said, evaluate as we move forward and implement some other places. And so the other functions of TISMO, Integrated Corridor Management, which I will talk about that, ICM. And we do have Traffic Operations Center and Signal System Coordination. Let me talk a little bit about ICM. ICM, Integrated Corridor Management, basically it is when you are in the congestion or when we have any incident, it will give you alternate route, how soon you can exit and not to get, toggle up at the incident or congestion. That's basically integrated corridor management that you can use the arterial system integrated with the main line. So we have two programs right now. One of them, we're working with MAG hand in hand in I10 West. Bob, please correct me. I10 West, and has gone through the modeling, and we have programmed that, and we're working on that. And please let me know how much time I have so I can. 2 minutes? Oh boy. Okay. So the other program we have is an ICM is 101, and we have with City of Scottsdale and City of Phoenix. We're working on that, and let me talk very quickly about connected and autonomous vehicle. And let me go over something. Okay, as you can see, we had executive order from Governor on August 25th to bring autonomous vehicle to the valley. So, so basically, we've been working with University of Arizona and Maricopa County Department of Transportation and ADOT. We partner, and we do have Daisy Mountain, area, which is completely set up for V2V and V2I, vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure. And we have 11 intersections that are completely equipped with DSRC, which is the dedicated short-range communication devices that can communicate with the vehicle and infrastructure. And then we included I-17 within that, V2V and V2I. So we're moving forward with that. Definitely, it's the money issue. It's the issue that we really need to get our arms around in terms of infrastructure. One of the things I'd like to point out that we are doing I10 Corridor Coalition, and basically I10 Corridor Coalition is we something together with Texas, New Mexico, California, and Arizona, and we're going to have very unified, standardization of permitting and everything else from California all the way to Texas. And we signed a charter. And if you have any other question, please ask me later. And thank you so much. I'm sorry if I've been a little over my time. You're welcome.
Okay, we'll now open it up for questions. We have time for 2 short questions max. Are there any questions for Bob or Reza? Yes.
Thanks. Aaron Dock from SRP. As far as autonomous vehicles, in your planning, about what years are you expecting those to impact our transportation?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh.
Flip the button up. Sorry. You have to turn it on.
Is it working?
There
Okay.
you go, Aaron.
Sorry, Aaron Dock from SRP. So as far as autonomous vehicles, about what years out do you expect them to start impacting your planning?
Sure. Okay.
Go on ahead, please.
Actually, in terms of autonomous vehicle, the car manufacturers are way ahead of us. I mean, nationally, I'm working hand in hand with the AASHTO and connected vehicle team. We have 5 different groups that we're looking at different things on connected vehicle. And autonomous vehicle, as you probably know, we have to have infrastructure out for the autonomous vehicle to work 100%. As you heard, Google car, had some kind of incident with the bus because of, not having, infrastructure out. But by 2020, at least this is what I hear from our car manufacturers, Ford and GM, they're going to be putting autonomous vehicle out. And as you know, there are some other manufacturers right now. They have autonomous vehicle in very, very limited number out. But by 2020, at least what we're expecting, autonomous vehicle is going to be out by GM and Ford and other manufacturers. In what extent, I don't know. But in terms of for us to be ready for that, we're definitely working, towards that goal.
Thank you, Reza.
One other question. I know that I saw a presentation by both of you, and one of the things that they were really kind of focusing on is instead of communities putting infrastructure into digging up the streets and so forth, was to really take a look at that technology infrastructure. Do either of you want to comment on that a little bit?
Well, technology is as Reza just pointed out, it's a bit tricky, and the private industry is certainly way ahead of government in terms of where things stand today. And the one thing that's really unique about this is it's not the auto manufacturers that are doing it. It's folks like Google and Apple that are doing it right now. So it's the non-traditional folks that are actually doing it. And so from our particular realm of planning, we don't know when the connected autonomous vehicle future is going to be upon us. All we have are things that tell us that, for example, Bluetooth was a luxury item in most vehicles as recently as 2011, and now there isn't a car that isn't sold without it, and that adoption happened very fast. And so in terms of how the actual connected autonomous vehicle starts to take over, as Reza stated, most cars I think are going to be sold with some type of a connected autonomous vehicle future sometime between now and 2020. But where they will be fully in operation, we're not really certain. In advance of that, though, what we've been working with ADOT on, as Reza pointed out, is these things like better ramp metering. A lot of folks don't like to be hung up at the ramps, obviously, and you kind of think that you have to tap your brake, and it's an issue. But it's extremely important because what it does is it protects the flow on the freeway, and it makes certain that the freeway can function at the most efficient rate. And let's put it this way: if you spent maybe an extra minute or two waiting on the ramp, that would probably save you maybe 5-10 minutes on your trip on the freeway, because we're protecting the flow and we're trying to keep the traffic flowing at a constant rate. And I could get all engineering on you if you wanted. But the point is, though, is that if you get too many cars on the freeway, you can't push as many cars through. If you think about it like a sieve. And so we're working with ADOT right now to try and work that. And the ramp meters are probably one of the biggest parts. Incident and crash management, we've been working with ADOT and are funding a program right now to where the Department of Public Safety is now in the Traffic Management Center. That was something that was never done before. And a lot of folks might say, well, that's kind of a duh. Why didn't you do that? Well, the thing about it is that now we have sworn officers in the center that when they see an incident, they can summon whatever emergency equipment has to be summoned to a particular incident. In the past, all ADOT could do was just advise DPS on that, and then DPS would have to get around to doing it. And so you can imagine the delay. Well, now we're able to get that. So it's stuff like that. We're also thinking about things like variable speed limits to be able to help things out. I know a lot of people don't want to have to drive slower, but the point is if you drive a little bit slower, you get more cars on the freeway. Your delay isn't as great. And the one thing to remember too is that when you get the connected autonomous vehicles, everyone wants to see that, but they're going to be operating at the speed limit. They are not going to be operating over the speed limit. And I'm not trying to advocate that we do that kind of stuff by any means. But the point is, though, is that that's what you're going to start to see.
Let me add one thing, if I may, to what Bob said. Regarding the autonomous vehicle and connected vehicle, as I said, there are some car manufacturers, they will put the autonomous vehicle on the road with certain date. It is really up to us as agency and how we can catch up with that. And one other thing that I would like to mention that we need to have some infrastructure in place as we get too close to having fully operated, autonomous vehicle on the road. By the way, why we're doing all this? This is just for safety. Right. And as Bob mentioned regarding having DPS at the TOC, one of the reasons, as I showed in my pie chart, the problem is congestion. As soon as we can we open the lane in the case of incident, that's how we can relieve some of the congestion due to the incident. In the past, the problem we had was, as incident happened on the freeway, by the time we called the tow truck, they send equipment that was not really capable of moving whatever that incident was. Now, by having sworn officer at the TOC, they can assess, they can have direct communication with their folks on the scene, what kind of equipment they need, and right away, because they can see it on the camera, right away they can communicate with the towing company, and they have better equipment to lift that, whatever that the case is. So that's how we're trying to remove those obstacles and open the lane as soon as possible. That's one of the things that really never happened, and this is happening with the great help from MAG that we had TOC integrated with the DPS officers.
Great information, and thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
We will have their PowerPoints up on our website after, so if you want any further questions, and it has all of their contact information on it. But again, Chandler's always been progressive in being first out there, so thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. So our next speaker is David Delatorre from the City of Chandler's Planning Department, and he also has Kevin Mayo and Jeff Kurtz also here in the audience that if you have additional questions. So I'm going to pull up your PowerPoint and turn it over to you.
Okay, can you hear me now? All right, thanks. So last year, the Supreme Court decided in the town of Gilbert versus Reed that regulations that treat signs differently based on what the sign says or based on the content of the sign violates the First Amendment and therefore is unconstitutional. And so this is the primary reason why the city of Chandler is updating its sign code. And that specifically is to remove all content-based regulations from our sign code. Secondarily, we have goals to clean up the code because I don't believe that the sign code has ever been comprehensively updated since it was initially adopted in the 1970s, and correct me if I'm wrong. And there's been portions and sections that have been updated over the years, but it's never gone through a comprehensive update. And so there's lots of outdated codes or outdated terms and citations, and practices have changed. You know, there's certain sections in the code that aren't aligned with our current administrative practices. And another goal, of course, is to just make it easier to understand, make it easier for businesses, such as yourselves, to know when a permit is required, when it's not required, and what specifically are the regulations for any type of given sign. The sign code, which is Chapter 39 of the City Code, can be broken down into three basic parts. There's general regulations, which apply to all signs. There's regulations for permanent signs, and then regulations for temporary signs. The proposed revisions in the draft that's out there right now, the proposed revisions in the first two parts are really cleanup, as I mentioned before. We're just updating those citations and aligning those sections with current practices. Most of the substantial changes that we're proposing in the draft are in the temporary sign section, and that is because all of the temporary sign types that are identified in the current code are all content-based, and most cities across the nation are in the same boat. I know most cities in the valley are in the same boat. You're going to see a lot of cities working on the sign code amendments everywhere, really. So this presentation is going to focus on the temporary sign section, and it's going to be a broad overview of the existing code, what the existing regulations are for temporary signs, and what we're proposing for those temporary signs in the new draft. It's not going to go into the nuts and bolts or details because there's just so many, but as I go through this presentation, please keep in mind that it is just a draft at this point, and the city does welcome your comments, but we ask, however, that you submit them in writing, and I'd be happy to, after my presentation, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but we do want to get your comments in writing, and at the end of the presentation, I'll show a website where anyone can go to review the draft, and there's a survey where you can submit your comments, and there's also a link that I added yesterday. There's a link to my direct email in case you have a document that you want to upload. You can send it directly to me, and we'll get your comments that way. But getting your comments in writing allows us to track the comments and also to thoroughly review those comments with our law office to make sure that we're thoroughly analyzing all the comments that we get. Before I jump into the temporary sign section, though, I do want to note that the proposed code continues to prohibit all signs in the right-of-way, except for signs that are protected by state government, signs that are posted by a government, and signs that are required by a government, or notices that are required by a government, as well as buildings with zero setbacks. These are the buildings that front onto a public sidewalk, and they have no other choice where to put a sign except for on the public sidewalk. And that only happens, the only place where that happens in the city is really in downtown. And then, of course, bus shelter signs are the other exception. But not effectively, there's no change to how the code is currently administered as the draft is proposed today. So temporary signs. Currently, the existing code identifies 11 different types of temporary signs, and these are listed on the left-hand side of the screen here. And you can see just by reading the titles of each temporary sign that every single one of them is content-based. Open house signs has their own regulations. Grand opening signs have a separate set of regulations. Opening during construction signs, and so on and so forth. The proposed code it replaces all 11 existing type of signs with 5 new sign types that are not content-based, but they're based on the physical characteristics of these signs. So we're removing away from the content-based regulations. So what I'm going to do is just go briefly through each one of these, how compare existing code with proposed code regulations. The only instance in the existing code where A-frame signs are allowed is for open house signs. And they're allowed to have up to a maximum of 4 open house signs. In the proposed code, the draft proposes to allow up to 10 A-frame signs in single-family residential neighborhoods. There would be one sign on the property, and then one additional sign at each turning movement, beginning from that subject property up to a mile away. So it could be less than 10. It really depends on how many turning movements there are between the subject property and going a mile away. And those signs would only be able to be displayed while the subject property is open to the public. So again, we're not talking about content. So it could be an open house event. It could be a yard sale. It could be a birthday party. You know, we're not going to tell you what that sign can or cannot say. But if it's an A-frame sign in a residential neighborhood, that's what we're talking about now. 10 signs, up to 10 signs, 1 on each turning movement and 1 on the property. In addition, the proposed code is now officially allowing each business to place 1 A-frame or T-frame sign within the building envelope. The building envelope is defined in the proposed code as basically the immediate exterior area of that building front. So it's that walkway that leads to that front door of the building. Currently, the sign code does not allow businesses to do that. And I know there's businesses out there that are doing it, and you know, the city staff are not enforcing that, but this would officially make that legal and acceptable. In addition, businesses that front onto a public sidewalk, as I mentioned before, they would be allowed to put their A-frame or T-frame sign within the public sidewalk. There would be a minimum pedestrian walkway clearance, I think it's 5 feet, that they would need to maintain so that the walkway is not obstructed. The next 3 types of signs are grand opening, open during construction, and significant event signs. And those have been recategorized in the proposed code as banners, air-activated signs, and feather signs. So these are what we are identifying as feather signs. There's lots of different names for them. They're teardrop signs, they're feather flags, vertical banners, but this is what we're talking about when we talk about feather signs. These are air-activated signs, include the air dancers or the inflatable figures. You know, it could be a gorilla, it could be ice cream cone, who knows. Again, we're not specifying what it can or cannot look like or what it can or can't say. We're just saying if it has these physical characteristics, then these are the new regulations. And of course, banners. So what are the existing regulations for these? Currently, the code allows an unlimited number of these types of signs for a special event. It allows them for a period of 21 cumulative days within each 6-month calendar period. And a permit is required currently for these significant event signs in order to be able to track and enforce that time period. In the proposed draft, it's allowing up to 1 banner, 2 air-activated signs, and 2 feather signs for each business. This is not per property. So if you're in a shopping center, each business in that shopping center is allowed 1 banner, 2 air-activated signs, and 2 feather signs during a 30-day period, cumulative days within a 6-month calendar period. And again, a temporary sign is proposed to be required, as it currently is required, in order to track that time limit and enforce that time limit. The next set or group of existing type of signs all share the same physical characteristics, which is basically they have a rigid sign face and 1 or more poles that support that sign on the ground. And so all of these have been recategorized in the new proposed code as a temporary freestanding sign. So these are our development signs, you know, the coming soon. These are the subdivision signs or directional signs on the bottom. We have a subdivision sign, real estate signs over there, and a contractor sign. So again, you can see by the pictures, they all share the same physical characteristics. A rigid sign face supported by 1 or more poles. And so these are now all grouped into 1 category in the new code. Theoretically, under the existing code, 1 property could have all of these on the property at the same time. if it's a subdivision and if they're building model homes and so on, they could have an unlimited number of subdivision signs. And 2, by the way, is the number that's allowed. It's one sign per frontage. So 2 would be the maximum for a corner parcel. So 1 is the standard, but 2 is the maximum for a corner parcel where you see 2 listed here. Under the proposed draft, we're maintaining that same rule. It's 1 temporary freestanding sign per frontage, per street frontage, or 2 on a corner parcel. So 2 is the maximum. Permits would only be required. Currently, some of these require permits, some of them don't. In the new proposal, only the signs that are greater than 32 square feet would require a permit, and that is to make sure that, because they're so big, we want to make sure they don't fall over and create a safety hazard. Political signs are currently, it's the last temporary sign type that's identified in our existing code, and that is being replaced with a provision in the proposed code to allow for authorized signs that are authorized or protected by state government. Also in that category would be the sign walker signs. You know, the state government says the cities cannot prevent sign walkers from standing on the sidewalk with the sign, and so they would fall under that code, under that new provision as well. With respect to code enforcement, currently the only option available to the city to enforce the sign code is to go through a criminal misdemeanor process. We don't use that very much, but that's the only option that's in there right now. And so what we're proposing is to add the ability to issue civil citations, which is what most cities are doing. And this would align with our city policies to work with the property owner or the business owner to try to get them to, you know, voluntarily reach compliance without having to go through a long criminal misdemeanor process. And so this we see as a plus, you know, a positive step in the right direction. Public hearings have been scheduled for the Planning Commission on December 7th. The City Council would may or may not hold a micro retreat on the 23rd, but will be scheduled to review the introduction of the ordinance for these new sign regulations on January 26th. And we're planning for the final adoption of that ordinance in February 9th. The draft and the survey, the comment form is available on our website, and I think the next slide has that web address for everybody. We're going to be using social media to spread awareness of what we're working on. We have reached out to Valley Partnership, Southeast Valley Regional Association of Realtors. We're briefing the chamber today, and then next week we're briefing DCCP, Downtown Chandler Community Partnership. So again, we do want your comments, but we would like them in writing, and I'll show the website in the next slide. But we will be tracking all of your comments, all the comments that we receive. We will be tracking them and then presenting them to the Planning Commission and to the City Council and saying, these are the comments that we received. And then we'll have, in that same spreadsheet, we'll have, you know, these are the changes that we're proposing from, you know, from staff's perspective based on the comments that we received. And so that will all be very transparent. And here is the website, www.chandleraz.gov/planning. Yesterday, I added a link to my direct email to that website because we heard that there's a limit to the amount of text that you can put in the survey form that's out there right now. So if you do have a lot of comments, or if you want to upload a Word document or a PDF, you can send it directly to me, and the link to my email is on that website now. So that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, David. That was very thorough and informative. I'd now like to open it up for a couple of questions. Yes, question in the front. Let me get you the mic.
I actually have a lot of questions, but since we are restricted to just one, I was wondering if the city has gone through any kind of written evaluation of whether the proposed revisions are comply with the constitutional restrictions.
We are meeting with our law offices. We still need to, we're in the process of doing that. We haven't reached a definitive answer, but we are meeting with our law office to determine whether it is constitutional or not. So.
Okay, next question. Excuse me.
So my question is, we know that there's controversy right now with the it's actually Reed versus Gilbert. And we know that that's one of the reasons, as you've stated, that you're working on the sign codes and you're working to amend them. You also know that you've got the Goldwater Institute involved, you've got my organization, many other brokerages that work throughout the valley and especially in Chandler. Why is it that we're at this level and we're already booking appointments to go to council, we've got appointments to go to the planning commission, we've got other things going on? Wouldn't it be wise for the planning department, for your department, to reach out to people like me, people like Goldwater, who have a pretty good understanding, working, of course, with the city attorney's office? Wouldn't it be wise to vet all this so that rather than have us all have to come to these meetings one after another, and rather than trying to shove this down our throats, bring our comments in with you, and then the other thing, that's my question, and then just a comment that I think you have to remember. In the city of Chandler, as Jeff knows and many others, there has been street work that's been done up and down every major corridor. So right-of-ways have changed dramatically. And last but not least, and then it'll go back to my question, I think if you look at, and the city attorney will probably be able to advise better, on the Gilbert and Reed case, it's all about right-of-ways. So how you just take away right-of-ways, I don't really know. But my real question is the one about why not bring us in early into the loop so that we don't have to have an adversarial role, so that we can have a friendly, let's get it done together, and let's try to accomplish the ultimate goal.
Great question, and I will defer to our city attorney here, but my understanding is the city is under a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is tying our hands on our time limit and other issues. So I'll defer now to our city attorney.
Thank you, and if I may, thank you, Mr. Pollack. We are under tight time constraints due to a lawsuit, and we can talk about that, and as we talked about this morning, we will set up a meeting, and if we can extend those time frames in the lawsuit, then maybe we can have a little more time for the dialogue. We're trying to get out there and get as much input, opening our website portal, letting people know, getting the information out as quickly as possible so everybody has an opportunity to comment. I don't want to comment on the legal issues and the Reed case because, quite frankly, that's a conversation at a different time and place. But more importantly here, we welcome everybody's comments. Please use our website portal. Please get us your comments. We will take all those into consideration. And of course, ultimately, it's going to go through the Planning Commission and the Council. Those are going to be public hearings, and everybody who has comments on it should plan on attending those hearings. But we are taking the comments. They will be considered. They will be vetted through the City Attorney's Office as well as the Planning Department, and we will present our summaries to the Planning Commission and Council. We may extend some of those days out. We're talking about that just simply so we can have a little more time. But again, that's going to be contingent upon agreements relating to the litigation that's pending.
Thanks, Kelly, for your comments. I just wanted to clarify regarding the lawsuit. What the order says is it only requires the City Council to introduce some proposals to the City Council by a certain date, which is February 9th. So the lawsuit is not constraining the city's ability to deal with a comprehensive upgrade of the sign code. But as we discussed today, we'll of course work with the city on making sure that we are collaborating on this and making sure that we are including everyone's comments and making this truly content neutral. And I would thanks. Yeah, that sounds a little bit better, I think. And the other thing we discussed in the morning was sitting together and talking through some of these issues. So really appreciate your coming forward with that kind of a proposal. As far as the deadlines in the court order are concerned, we have had since June 2015 to start looking at the sign code, and it's going to be 2 years before something is going to happen. So given that the deadlines that the court ordered were taking into consideration the fact that we have had almost 2 years now to deal with the sign code. So I appreciate your willingness to work in a thorough manner, but at the same time, there is definitely some urgency involved, and we have to get the ball rolling at some point.
Thank you. That concludes our question and answer. Like David said in his presentation,
Thank you,
we're
David.
open to feedback, so please submit your feedback via the portal or to the email address that David says he has on file. I'm now going to turn it over to Terry to give you an update on Prop 206.
All right. So thank you. I know that we've got a lot to cover today. Several of you have asked information on Prop 206. As you know, the Chamber was vehemently opposed to Prop 205 and Prop 206. I do have some handouts here on how employers need to become compliant on that and some of the deadlines, so please feel free to take that, as well as I know some of the questions came in online on how do you challenge this. And bottom line, it is voter approved. And so there's a whole lengthy process. So I do have information on how to contact the Secretary of State's website and so forth, and the booklet and how to handle that. So I do have that information here. The other thing I want to point out is we have an upcoming Meet the Elected Officials breakfast on January 6th. And we have some new delegation in West Chandler at the state level, as well as also two new city council representatives. So you'll have your chance. They'll be invited to attend, as well as our federal delegation. We will have the U.S. Chamber flying in for that particular meeting, as well as the governor's office has been invited as well. So mark your calendars, January 6th, Meet the Elected Officials breakfast. We will also be rolling out our legislative document, our How We Stand document. And there are issues on there at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level. So just wanted to give you a quick snapshot and update on that. And of course, one of the highlights of each of these public policy meetings is an update from our city. So Council Member Human is here, and also Council Member Allen. So would you like to give us a city update?
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Just real quick, I thank everybody for coming out here today. I know time constraints were a chance for a lot of questions, but this is something, the sign code for one thing, the city's working on very carefully. Couple things going on. Our Festival Lights Parade on December 3rd. Come on out for that. We had like over 10,000 people the last couple of years. Come early, bring your chairs, because it does fill up pretty quick in terms of the streets. We did, for people interested in the downtown area, a lot of stuff going on. What we call Site 3, which is the corner of Arizona Avenue and Chandler Boulevard. We just issued a 90-day exclusive operating window for not LG Gallery, it's one of my customers, LG, to work on bring an entertainment facility to Chandler. We'd worked with Vintage Partners for a couple of years. It didn't work out, so we're very excited about that. They feel they can get that done, bringing a movie theater into downtown Chandler. Site 6 is being worked on, which is across from City Hall. That continues to be worked on. There's a new apartment complex that looks like it's going to happen, probably breaking ground sometime in the second quarter of 17. Back behind the downtown area, there's also another 150 to 175 where the old casitas were for San Marcos. That's going to be coming through hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months as well. So a lot of stuff going on in the downtown area, a lot of stuff going on throughout the city and stuff, but we're real excited. We have some other major announcements hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to let people know about. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Human. Do you have some updates, Councilmember Allen?
Sure. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and we really appreciate your coming here. And so we have, if you have a doggy, which I do, we have Woofstock on Saturday. Very important. That's at so I think it's at Tumbleweed Park, and then we have Rock the Block also Saturday. So anyway, I think Rick covered the important things, and happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the audience?
How's it going? I'm Kellen Sears with Neater's Bakery and Cafe. I'm actually here with several of our local small businesses, and just wanted to kind of come out and say that, you know, with Prop 206 passing, you know, a lot of us small business owners are trying to figure out what we're going to do. Obviously, for some people, they say, oh, just raise your prices and it's easy. There's a lot more to that. I'm personally very, very against it for a number of reasons I won't go into here. But I am looking for support on finding a way to change or modify that to better suit everyone as a whole this next year. So if you're interested in that and supporting that, then you know, please get with me, and I'm not going to give up on this. So I'm going to fight it and fight it.
Any other questions?
With the Prop 206, we're a small business. We're Ice Cream Sammy's in downtown Chandler. What is the chamber, either locally or throughout the state, are you talking with other chambers to help with this? I mean, it's on our shoulders as small business people to be compliant, but what is the chamber who we're engaged in paying and contributing to on a city level and then also on a state level to help? If you're against it, what is the chamber doing to help either put a new initiative in or do something? I know it's not impossible. There are ways around it. It will have to go back to voters. But what is the way that the chamber is willing to step up and help small businesses in our city with this process?
It's funny because we had several public hearings prior to this in our chamber board, our public policy committee, our executive committee, and the board. We came out very loud and strong against this. Okay. And unfortunately, it lost at the ballot. We also joined in local chambers through the East Valley Chamber Alliance that also came out against that, as well as the Arizona Chamber as well. We will have some smaller focus groups, also meeting with some of our elected officials. But bottom line, it has to go back to the voters in order to change that. And so, that is, we have lobbyists that work on our behalf down at the Capitol as well. But unfortunately, it's got to go back on the ballot, and there's a whole process on that. So we will be working collaboratively with some of our other partners as well as the Arizona Chamber too. So. We've been discussing this since they were starting to gain signatures. We have been discussing this at Public Policy and making this an awareness issue here in this chamber every 2 weeks to talk about that. And we've also had some mini roundtable discussions through our emails and so forth that have come out all throughout the summer. We had been meeting on this because we knew that this could be a concern. And I know that you say that you're a small business. This affects me too as a small business. And between healthcare and this federal overtime, which we've also discussed, this will have an impact on us as well. So we are collaborating, and so please watch your emails. And if you're not signed up to get those emails, that's how we post those, or go onto our website and we post those roundtable discussion and meetings. So, but we have been very active in this. Any other questions?
About the Prop 206 thing, because I only knew about it because I was a small business owner, but all over social media there was nothing about it trying to vote it down or anything like that, or what the implications were going to be to the small businesses here.
We did have it on our social media as well as the Arizona Chamber, and we also had a coalition that we had been posting that. I understand that. So I'm just wondering, maybe this time, like, redo the efforts and focus on the groups that we need to have voted down rather than the people Well, and it's also a statewide initiative. We also partnered with the Arizona Restaurant Association, which was very loud and clear about that. We worked with their lobbyist as well on some of that information. I'd be happy to talk to you more in depth on some of the ways that we were promoting it. But we do have to get that out. It has to be a collaborative effort. It can't just be one voice. So, one more question? Okay, thank you very much for being here. Lots and lots of hot topics, and our next public policy won't be until the 4th Friday in January. So have a safe holiday, and thank you.